Good morning, good day, or good evening to whoever happens to be listening to this particular edition of The Week in Music History. My name is Ian Gertenbach. I am a music business and music culture lecturer here at COPA Johannesburg, and I'm joined by
Cesare Casarino. I'm the bass teacher and songwriting lecturer at COPA, Kingston.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for joining me, Cesare. So for those who aren't particularly familiar with the format, what we do is we go through the passage of time in the music industry, and we just highlight a couple of interesting things that have happened on each day through each week, and just kind of wax a little bit lyrical about those things, and maybe give some of our very either qualified or maybe even unqualified opinions. But that is the general format. I must take care to give a lot of credit to the website thisdayinmusic.com. If they didn't compile this information, then I would not have a show to piggyback on their glory. So let us get started. On Monday, the 19th of February in 1964, a British company shipped a half-ton of Beatle wigs to the US. That is wigs meant to emulate the hairstyles of the very popular group at that time, the Beatles, whom everyone should know at the very least. An American reporter later asked John Lennon, "How do you feel about teenagers imitating you with Beatle wigs?" John replied, "They're not imitating us because we don't wear Beatle wigs."
Good comeback. I like that.
Yeah, always with the humor. All right, what happened on Tuesday there, Cesare?
So Tuesday, the 20th of Feb, in 2014, the British phonographic industry reported that digital revenues now accounted for 50% of the total UK record industry income. That's interesting, because that either means, that means something's gone down. Mostly, look, I don't know what to say about this. I've got a lot of opinions about it, but at least something's going up. I'm wondering how much of it is going to the actual musicians, how much is winding up in their pockets.
That is a very common question, and many artists have railed out against it and refused to have their catalogs available on the streaming websites because they feel that they aren't getting their dues, and it's certainly not a perfect model. But
no, and it's very hard to monitor.
Yes. Exactly. So, what else
Okay,
happened?
so digital album sales and a surge in streaming had boosted total digital revenue in 2013 to £365 million. Whoa, up from 326 million. So that's a 45.5% share in 2012. So streaming revenue increased by 41%, bringing total UK revenue to £730.4 million, the first growth since 2009. So obviously it's going up there, but let's see. I'm curious to see what happens in 20, 30 years time regarding this whole model.
Anyway. Well, like I say, because this particular fact interested me quite a bit as well, and obviously because I teach music business, I have to know these kind of things. And although I can't give you an exact figure with the UK record industry income, that number just keeps growing on the digital side of it as well. And the fact that I would say that it's a very big deal because obviously before such a time, and especially with the whole advent of Napster and digital streaming and everything that led to where we are now, the music industry was essentially hemorrhaging money. And no one was
somebody's pocket.
Exactly, into somebody's pockets, but definitely not the musicians, which is unfortunately always been the case. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword because nowadays, obviously, artists have more power, and the record label itself is trying its best to kind of re-monetize the record industry model with digital streaming and stuff. But obviously, the question remains as to whether the money is even going directly into the artist's pockets or not. So that remains to be seen.
I just wanted to interject there. Something interesting for me is along the line, artists started selling their music directly online.
That's
paying
right.
for their own recordings. Particularly, one of the ones that stood out for me was obviously there was Annie DeFranco in the early days.
Oh yes,
she started doing really well selling her music directly. But Radiohead, Radiohead's model with the donations.
I believe it was the In Rainbows album. I think they released it completely themselves.
And they asked for donations, right? So I don't know the figures, and I mean I might be way off here, and I've looked it up, and there's no official numbers, but they were saying that It was around 63 million pounds.
And they actually gave fans the choice to pay nothing for it as well.
But people are loyal because they got a loyal fan base. They've built up, they've built it up slowly, and because of I think the integrity of the band. So I personally would be very happy to give them, money. Like,
are you a Radiohead fan, Cesare?
Yeah, I am. Absolutely.
So am I.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Love that band.
Of course. Of course.
So actually, just on that particular subject as well, especially with regards to that because they were one of the first artists to actually do that, make their music available to the fans, and the fans kind of decide how much to charge. And ironically enough, or maybe not ironically enough, but they actually managed to, at the very least, pay for the recording of the album. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure of that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. So
in terms of what they would get through a record company, I'm sure it was...
the percentages generally, especially traditionally, it's very unfair towards the artist. I mean, and then can you believe there are still some record labels that still, even if the music is being sold digitally, they still try and account for costs being taken for packaging and things like that. What packaging? It's intangible technically. So there was still a bit of a flawed system, but
I wanted to say, I mean, I'm not sure what's happening with that model now. I sort of assumed that would take off. People would start following that, and improving on it, but I don't see a lot of people doing that right now. I'm wondering what the limitations are.
If I may jump on that, I believe a big part of the reason for that is also because obviously it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because obviously the internet and the technology and of recording and distribution and all that kind of thing, it has made it infinitely easier for any person with a home recording studio in their home to record and distribute an album. But the trick is getting enough people to care enough about it. So now we've basically got a whole ocean of people distributing stuff and trying to get their names heard and out there and all that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, publicity is going to help them a lot, because for every person that's essentially being a success of themselves or making a success of themselves using this model, there's at least 250,000 that are doing the exact same thing and wondering why it isn't happening to them as well.
Well, I suppose that's just like anything, like gigging as well. I mean, some people are getting gigs, some aren't. There's a lot of reasons for that, but I was just hoping that would take off, like the infrastructure for that.
Yes.
The billing software and, just the ethos of, taking care of your own recording and marketing it yourself and putting it out there.
100%.
I thought that kind of thinking that that was the early days of punk rock.
I think that is the case, but obviously it's going to require a bit more work before it really becomes like sort of a widespread sort of thing. So we can only hope, I guess.
Yeah. Anyway, so
let's move on. This is a wonderful topic, and I would love to bring you in here to chat about it more, Cesare. Seeing as we both have a lot to say on it, but we must move on.
Sure.
On Wednesday, the 21st of February in 1972, the legendary Led Zeppelin released "Rock and Roll / 4 Sticks" as a 7-inch single in the US, peaking at number 47 on the chart. The song was written as a spontaneous jam session whilst the band were trying to finish the song 4 Sticks. Drummer John Bonham was getting all fed up and wanted to blow off some steam, so he decided to start playing the introduction to Little Richard's "You Keep a Knockin'," and Jimmy Page added a very now iconic guitar riff. With tapes rolling, the basic song was finished 15 minutes later.
Wow, yeah, that's a real band of musicians, a band of real musicians.
Damn straight, man. Damn straight. Like, just, okay, cool. Well, we've got this thing floating around. Might as well make a song out of it. And that's the way it needs to be, in my personal opinion. Now, on Thursday, what happened there, Cesare?
Thursday, 22nd of Feb, 2017, David Bowie dominated the 2017 Brit Awards. The star was awarded Best British Male and Best British Album for his mournful swan song, Black Star. Is that the one with the band with Mark Juliana, Tim LaFave?
That's right. I believe so.
So he pulled in that band. He'd heard them playing somewhere in New York. It's like a sort of contemporary modern jazz outfit. Yeah, great musicians. I'm a big fan of Mark Juliana.
Yeah.
Okay, so I remember seeing this. This was a very long tune and it wasn't very radio friendly and it was kind of dark.
What, the Black Star album?
Yeah.
Well, like, I mean, there was that. I failed to remember the like. I think the song itself was actually called Black Star. That was, I think, more due to the fact that it was kind of aligned to. It was his swan song kind of thing, like his final sort of goodbye to the fans before, because I think he knew he was going to kick the bucket quite soon after that album was released. So I think that also played a part in it being so dark. Shall we say?
No,
so,
look, I don't have a problem with that. Make no mistake, guys. It's not
no.
criticism. In fact,
it's an amazing work.
Yeah. I don't know it well enough. I'm going to go check it out now that it's come up.
It's a really, really good album.
So Rag and Bone Man was the other big winner on the night of the night, taking home 2 awards. Okay, well, David Bowie, Rag and Bone Man, I don't know. Sorry. The Critics' Choice Award and Best British Breakthrough Act. Yeah. As well as honouring David Bowie, the Brits paid tribute to George Michael, who died on Christmas Day 2016. Wow, that was really sad.
Yeah, I was quite upset about it. George Michael was quite a legend.
Yeah, but funnily enough, I remember when I was very young, the album that obviously caught my attention was the first Wham album, Make It Big or something.
I'm trying to remember
with Careless Whisper, Wake Me Up Before You Go, etc., etc.
Yes.
Anyway, so I remember hearing that album and thinking these guys are geniuses, because I was like 10 years old, 9 years old. Okay. Anyway,
so formative years.
Yeah, I remember thinking it was brilliant, and actually it really was. But around about the same time, there were rumors. I was listening to the radio and. They played Careless Whisper, and then the DJ came on the radio and he said, we regret to inform you that George Michael has died.
Oh, really?
Yes. This was like
way back then, hey?
In the 80s already. And then I remember for like 2-3 days, I was like very upset. I was like, this is an injustice.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Especially on such a high note that their career was on as well.
Yeah, but it turns out he had like another 30 years or something to go. So I was really upset. I was really relieved when I found out that he was still alive.
I can just imagine. All right, and then what happened on Friday there? Oh no, that is actually my baby. I do apologise. So on Friday, the 23rd of February in 2010, London's Abbey Road Studios was made a listed building, which means that it's protected from any radically sort of like altered plans to it, or to basically change the appearance of it too much, kind of making it a preserved or almost a heritage site in a way. Culture Minister Margaret Hodge listed the studios on the advice of English Heritage, saying it had produced some of the very best music in the world, and I find it difficult to disagree with that. The Beatles used Abbey Road for 90% of their recordings. The studio was originally named EMI Studios, but they changed the name to Abbey Road Studios in 1970, obviously because of the Beatles album, and they had such a history there as well. So I think that's really quite wonderful how something like that, at least the world, or at least the British government, decided to take notice of the fact that to let it be architecturally altered to the point where it's unrecognizable would be a very uncool thing to do.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. That's kind of like our Herbert Baker buildings.
100%. I actually went to primary school at a I don't know if you know Bishop Avon, just down the road.
Okay.
Some of their buildings are also Herbert Baker buildings as
amazing,
well.
Man. Amazing
lucky, architecture. Yeah.
All
right. And on Saturday,
24th of Feb, 2000, Carlos Santana won 8 awards at this year's Grammy Awards. Before the Supernatural album, the guitarist had not had a top 10 album since 1981. Yeah, that was quite a comeback. And I mean, it's quite interesting what he did here, because
the whole collaboration
he's an instrumentalist, right?
Yes,
and his style is quite singular. It's not the most he's not the most versatile instrumentalist. He does what he does, and he does it with integrity. But it's not the kind of thing that one could have predicted would have evolved like this. So this whole collaboration thing here, really, I mean,
it was a smart move, I would say.
Yeah, it's a great model. I think it's amazing, and I respect the dude for making that move. Maybe it was his management. I don't know who came up with the idea, but it really worked well. So it says that Sting won 2 awards. One for the best pop album and another one for best male pop vocalist.
Gordon Sumner's.
Yeah, big fan. That guy, I probably started playing bass because of Sting and Gito Beloya of Tanamas.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? Sting was an inspiration.
Huge fan, yeah, absolutely.
He's an amazing musician, that's for sure.
Okay, so, and then finally it says Sir Elton John won the Legend Award and Phil Collins the Best Soundtrack Award for Tarzan. I don't remember that.
I believe it was the animated Tarzan, especially if it came out in 2000. It must have been the Disney animated Tarzan movie that came out.
Because I probably wasn't watching animated movies around 2000.
I don't blame you, man.
It's quite possible.
All right, and then finally on Sunday, the 25th of February in 2009, now known as former President Barack Obama, honored Stevie Wonder, his musical hero, with America's highest award for pop music, the Library of Congress's Gershwin Prize, presumably named after George, or no, Ira Gershwin, I'm guessing, at a ceremony at the White House. The president said that the Motown legend had been the soundtrack to his youth, and he doubted that his wife would have married him if he hadn't been a fan. Wonder's song, Signed, Sealed, Delivered, had been the theme song during Obama's presidential campaign. So to cut you off, you had something to add there.
That was a whoa.
Whoa, fair enough. Okay,
no, it's impressive. It says here, yeah. So he credits Stevie Wonder's music. He credits it to him actually marrying his wife. That's incredible. I can understand the cultural impact that Stevie Wonder would have, at the time. Like, what was the big album, Songs in the Key of Life?
I think so. For me, it was always Hotter Than July for some weird reason, but I guess that's a personal choice kind of thing.
Okay, so I'm not specifically a huge Stevie Wonder fan, but I've had to learn a lot of his music over the years. And
how is the bass for his music?
It's incredible. I mean, his bass lines they're ever evolving.
Sure.
They're like it's almost like constant soloing in that the lines that he writes himself are constantly. There's a lot of improvising going on, and they're incredibly difficult to play.
Not just root notes, No,
not at all. Very melodic, and there's a lot of chord substitutions and inversions and things like that. And obviously, for me, one of the things that struck me about Stevie Wonder later on is when I started playing synth bass.
Okay.
Because I became very into drum and bass music and playing it live.
Okay.
So with live drummers and keyboard players. So I sort of started obsessing about synth bass and followed the trajectory of it through music history. I mean, I don't know how much I know in the grand scheme of things, but Stevie Wonder's synth bass playing and just his use of monophonic analog synths is mind-blowing.
And I suppose quite pioneering in many cases as well.
Absolutely. I mean, his work, I can, for me, it's up there with the Beatles and Michael Jackson, that kind of thing. So in later life, every time I listen to an old, the more classic Stevie Wonder stuff, I listen very closely to the bass lines, specifically the ones that he plays in his left hand on the keyboard.
Definitely.
Fantastic. Look, his bass player, was it Nathan Watts? That guy's fantastic. He's had quite a few brilliant bass players. But he himself is probably
his bass lines then on their own incredible. Kind of thing.
Not to mention, obviously, his compositions.
For sure.
But just within that, it's like, as I said earlier, it's like he's constantly soloing.
For sure. I did want to ask you as a bass player, and a question that I've always wanted to ask a bass player. What do you think of Flea's reinterpretation of Higher Ground?
Yeah. It's a great line. I mean, it makes perfect sense in retrospect because...
I think he transposed it incredibly well as well.
Yeah, well, I think the original is in E minor. I'm not sure, but I have learnt it. And when that album was Mother's Milk, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I sort of became conscious of the Chili Peppers around that time.
Okay.
And I heard that bass line and thought, this is a great line. I can't believe it. This is ridiculous. This is the best bass line I've ever heard in my life. And I think it had, obviously because of the note choices and the feel.
Yes.
But also because of the way Flea was playing and the tone he was getting out of his instrument. So it was kind of like a punk rock Marcus Miller.
Exactly.
So that was, I mean, I still play that bass line when I'm sound checking.
Yeah, well, I don't blame you. I mean, I'm not even a bassist, but I find myself attempting to play the bass line on guitar as well. Because, I mean, as you said yourself a little bit earlier, the way Stevie Wonder composed bass lines, because obviously there was originally a keyboard bass line riff kind of thing.
Funnily enough, it fits under the hands very well on the bass guitar.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
really?
Absolutely. And using the open strings makes it, it's sort of almost like it was written on the bass guitar.
Like it was meant to be on bass.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
But that's also a testament to his ability and skill as well.
Yeah, man. It's one of the greats, man.
Old Stevie Wonder, truly quite wonderful. Well, that brings us to the end of another installment of This Week in Music History. I hope you have all learned some interesting things and maybe some unexpected things as well. Please do not forget to check out COPA on COPA SA, and please give us a bit of a follow and a bit of a shout out on Instagram and Twitter with @COPA_SA with the hashtag COPA Radio. And if you really want to come up with a hashtag for This Week in Music History, I ain't gonna stop you. So once again, my name is Ian Gertenbach, and I was joined by
Cesare Casarino.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here, Cesare. I hope it wasn't too much of a bore for you.
Not at all.
Fantastic. All right. Have a good one, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Hey, where's Mitch?